Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, it's Jesse with the Common Nerd, bringing you pop culture and all things nerdy through a common sense lens. And with the summer officially over, boys and girls, the Labor Day weekend has now come and gone. I hope you had an absolutely excellent one. I hope you enjoyed your 3-day weekend if you got one. And if you didn't, well, I hope you still found some time to enjoy yourself and relax out there as well. But that officially means, officially, summer is over when according to a lot of the seasonal things out there. And of course, one of those includes the box office. And despite some major hits out there, overall, the numbers have officially been tallied and the summer box office has come in flat, boys and girls, with disastrous dumpster fires like Fantastic Four and the Thunderbolts and Superman's lackluster ability to make any headway worldwide. Things did not look very well. And the real question is now, what is Hollywood going to do about this? Because with these insane budgets of $200 to $300 million and sometimes even up to $500 or $600 million after the tax returns actually come back and we find out the real numbers, they cannot continue to go this direction if they're not going to continue having billion-dollar box office summer hits. And boys and girls, Hollywood is absolutely in a panic. They are freaking out. They don't know what to do. And ladies and gentlemen, most fans know it's really very obvious. Just give us a bunch of actual good storytelling, represent the source material if you're going to adapt something, and give us some news stories that are actually going to be something beyond just another more of your paint by the numbers agenda driven nonsense like what we've gotten over the past few years. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, you can hit those highs of box office summer's very, very past, boys and girls. And it's not just our friends over at That Park Place that are talking about this as well. The Wrap is asking the same questions, and even though the Hollywood Reporter tries to paint a good light for Disney, we know things are not turning out very well for them overall in general. So we're going to check out this article from thatparkplace.com. Of course, remind everybody what the mainstream legacy media has to say as well. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing. We just crossed 2,100. I think we're sitting at like 2,179, sailing our way towards 100,000, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, leave us a comment in the section down below letting you know what you think about all this. Does it surprise you at all that the box office is so abysmally bad and that it is even being compared to last year's flat box office summer? Boys and girls, those aren't my words. Those are the legacy media's words. Do you think there was anything that Hollywood could have done different to make this end up turning out very well? Or do you think the massive mistrust that the majority of audiences have out there for anything produced by Hollywood is one of those things that is just turning people off to not bother even showing up to it? Or do you think there is something more? Do you think there's a streaming influence? What do you think is the true factor behind why Hollywood is having such a disastrous dumpster fire of a summer? Let us know what you think about all of it in the comment section down below. If you'd like to support the channel, please check out the links in the description as well. All right, we're going to start over here from thatparkplace.com and then jump over a little bit to some of the stuff over there from the Hollywood Reporter and the Wrap as well. But we got to start with our dear sweet Marvin Montanaro, because we know everything from the legacy media is going to be nothing more than spin, and Marvin is going to try to give us his best fair and balanced approach as he possibly can by being honest about the reality of how bad these numbers truly are compared to the spin that the legacy media likes to give. And of course, the Wrap blocked all of their explanation as to why behind a paywall, because of course they did. So from Marvin Montanaro over at thatparkplace.com, summer 2025 box office tanks. Superman couldn't fly, Jurassic World couldn't roar, and Fantastic Four couldn't stretch. And that is a fact. Despite Superman absolutely trouncing Fantastic Four by a long shot, it still did not technically make money. And although we've heard many rumors behind the scenes that Zaslav is actually rather happy, and honestly it makes sense considering the disappointing track record that DC and Warner Brothers overall as a whole has had over the last few years, it doesn't surprise me that he's at least satisfied with those numbers. Hey, they didn't lose hundreds of millions of dollars, so I guess that's a good start in the right direction. The summer box office is supposed to be Hollywood's surest bet. Big budget blockbusters loaded with effects and franchise branding are meant to draw in global crowds and deliver the kind of revenue that keeps the industry afloat. Instead, the 2025 summer box office season has ended with fireworks, but with alarm bells, boys and girls. Yeah, nobody's out there celebrating out there in Hollywood, which is exactly why this headline from the Wrap reads, why this summer's box office failed to surpass a disappointing 2024. This year's $3.7 billion summer offers key takeaways for the industry going forward. And this is some of the stuff they come up with. Obviously, their answers are going to be at the bottom, but let's just get to some of their stuff real quick. One surefire franchise, once, remember, once the names in the game, once surefire franchises like Pixar and Marvel still disappointed, forcing a reevaluation of their upper ceiling, i.e., guess what? You're not really expecting their box offices to be as big as what they thought. Maybe you guys should adjust those budgets. Nostalgia helped propel hits like Lilo and Stitch and How to Train Your Dragon. Despite a so-so summer, theater companies are hopeful for a strong end of the year and a stronger 2026 with big names like Spider-Man returning, which is fair because at the end of the day, we know Spider-Man and like Deadpool and Wolverine are like the only surefire hits guaranteed to bring in people to the box office when it comes to Marvel. And we've also got Avatar, the third one at the end of the year. So that one's going to obviously probably end up making $1 billion, way more than $1 billion globally because all of the rest of them have as well. So fortunately enough, at least for all of our theater owners, they might still end up in the black at the end of the year. Despite boasting marquees titles like Fantastic Four's First Steps, James Gunn's Superman, and Jurassic World Rebirth, the summer box office grossed just $3.53 billion globally. That's virtually flat compared to last summer's $3.52 billion, and miles away from the pre-lockdown years when Hollywood reliably posted summer numbers in the $4 to $5 billion range. In short, the supposed return to normal, quote unquote, has fizzled, and studio executives are scrambling for answers, which is why this headline talks about a disappointing 2024, because they knew it was bad and nowhere near it should have been. The lineup looked promising on paper. Marvel, Pixar, DC, and Universal all delivered new entries in trusted franchises, but the returns were tepid. Personally, I think Marvin's being very nice about that. Marvel is no longer a trusted franchise, right? Deadpool and Wolverine, Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, those are trusted franchises, right? Spider-Man, that's a trusted franchise. Marvel is not a trusted franchise anymore, boys and girls. Word of mouth has to be superb or your movies are not going to do well. Don't believe me? Look at this summer. Look at Guardians of the Galaxy. Came in under expectations for its opening weekend, but had an incredible long-term hold. Why? Because the word of mouth for that movie was amazing, right? That's been the biggest hit Marvel has seen in years, boys and girls. So Marvel is not a trusted brand anymore, but I get where Marvin's coming from. Jurassic World Rebirth managed around $855 million worldwide. Solid, but a step down from the billion-plus runs of early installments. And yes, Jurassic World has been in a slow decline. The movies keep getting less and less money every time they roll out a new one. And from what I hear, that's partially because they keep getting worse. I did see the first one, but I haven't kept up with the rest of the series since they came out. James Gunn's Superman landed at a roughly $612 million. Respectable, but far from a cultural reset Warner Bros. Had hoped for. And honestly, arguably, you could make an argument for that movie that it did not make money as well. Marvel, though, had the worst summer of them all, with Thunderbolts and Disney's new Fantastic Four reboot falling way short of expectations. Both were weighed down by enormous budgets and mixed word of mouth. And honestly, a lot of people that saw Thunderbolts said they really enjoyed it, but most people are not going to go out to the theaters and pay $50 to $100 to go to a movie on a Friday or a Saturday night for a bunch of characters that they don't know anything about out there, right? So that's one of the things that set it up for failure on that one. Fantastic Four, hey, guess what? Pedro Pascal, all the excuses that they had for Thunderbolts and Captain America Brave New World all went out the window with Fantastic Four. So what's your excuse going to be now, Hollywood? That should be interesting. Put simply, the crown jewels of Hollywood IP failed to ignite. None came close to creating the viral Barbenheimer cultural moment of 2023, where audience hype drove repeat viewings and social media dominated conversations. And I really enjoyed Superman. My wife and I went and saw it. We reviewed it. You guys seem to enjoy the review. A lot of people watched it out there. You know, I gave it an 8. My wife gave it a 9. You know what I mean? Like, she liked it more than I did, but it wasn't one of those things. You have to be a home run hit at this point. You have to be universally loved by the fans out there in order for the word of mouth to get out there. And honestly, the fans were kind of divided on Superman as far as whether or not they liked it or did not like it. So that's not a good way to, that's not going to be a successful recipe for $1 billion movie. It's just not. Ironically, the company most under scrutiny, Disney, ended up with the season's only truly smash. The live-action CGI hybrid, Lilo and Stitch, didn't just clear the billion-dollar mark. It broke Memorial Day records and became the highest-grossing live-action animated hybrid film of all time. Honestly, that's not unexpected. We were all saying this from early on, that Lilo and Stitch was easily going to make $1 billion. I know my wife herself and a lot of the kids out there were super hyped for this movie. So yeah, it totally makes sense that that one did. The film's success highlights what audiences were actually responding to this summer from major blockbusters: nostalgia, emotion, and familiarity. It wasn't the sprawling multiverse stories or the gritty reboots that got families into theaters. It was a heartfelt retelling of a beloved story from the early 2000s, with an ending which completely and totally screwed up the original series. While the biggest franchises disappointed, the mid-tier title quietly kept theaters afloat. Horror and thrillers proved once again to be Hollywood's most reliable genre investment. They're cheap to make. It's why we've been seeing so many horror movies made over the last few years, because Hollywood is broke, boys and girls. They are out of money. Okay, like they're not going to be closing shop anytime soon because of everything that they own, right? They can always get loans based on just the IPs and the properties they own. But that's why you've seen so many horror movies getting made over the last few years, because they're cheap to produce. And they, as long as you keep the budget low, they almost always make a profit. Horror fans are like that. They'll give anything a shot, and I love them. Sinners and Weapons outperformed expectations, drawing repeat crowds on relatively small budgets. Netflix's theatrical one-off, K-pop Demon Hunters, made waves despite a limited release. Nostalgia sequels like Final Destination 6, 28 years later, and Freakier Friday performed admirably with much smaller budgets. All made a profit, boys and girls, all made a profit. These projects didn't need billion-dollar grosses to be profitable. In fact, their leaner budgets gave them a bigger margin for success compared to lumbering blockbusters that must clear $800 million just to break even. The panic in Hollywood. What's clear now is that the blockbuster model, $200 to $300 million productions meant to carry a season, is no longer dependable. Studios are waking up to the fact that audiences will turn out for horror, nostalgia, and smaller scale spectacle, but not necessarily for franchise retreads, no matter how much money gets thrown at them. It's not about how much money you throw. And this has always been the problem with the people that are possessed by the spirit of the age and their thinking, right? They think they throw more money at a problem that will fix things, right? It doesn't matter if it's government funded programs or if it's Marvel or if it's Hollywood or if it's movie productions or IPs or anything. They just think throwing more money at it is going to fix the problem. The problem is because they are so narcissistic, they are so prideful, they are so up their own rear ends that they can't see the forest for the trees, right? They think they are better, smarter, and faster than anyone that has ever come before. We've talked about it before. The Esposito guy, right? That's the co-head of Marvel Studios, the guy that never gets talked about. We've heard information from former Marvel employees specifically about how he hates the comic books and doesn't want any of these movies or any of these television shows to sound or seem too much like the comic book stories that literally made these franchises what they are, right? That until that changes, they are never going to be able to fix this. They need to do what you want to get people in. They just admit it, right? That Park Place just talked about it. The numbers do not deny. The numbers do not lie. Nostalgia sells. So if you tell us you're going to do a 1-for-1 representation of one of the most popular comic book lines ever, and not do some modern reinterpretation or do it in our own version or take a little of this and this and a little bit of that and then mix it into our own egotistical, prideful, narcissistic version, you might actually be able to convince some fans out there that you actually mean business, right? And at least the marketing around Superman was all about the nostalgia factor, right? Showing the comic books, talking about their love and appreciation for the characters, all of that kind of stuff out there, right? What was Fantastic Four's marketing all about? Girl boss Sue Storm, she's the leader, she's the heart, yada, yada, yada. Oh, color us shocked there. A lot of general audience fans weren't willing to give it a shot. It's almost like that stuff matters, and what you say and what your intentions put out there to the audience and the world out there actually matter. So until something like that happens, this is going to continue because the majority of fans do not trust Hollywood. And honestly, most normies don't know the difference between DC and Marvel. And that's okay. We love our normies. Our normies are what turn things into billion-dollar box office blockbusters. But trust me, some of the damage Marvel has done to the overall superhero genre absolutely rubbed off on Superman, boys and girls. But at the end of the day, James Gunn still could have overcome that. He didn't, and he didn't make all the fans happy. He just made some of the fans happy, and clearly more of the fans happy than Marvel did. Summer 2025 also put to bed any lingering argument that Pedro Pascal is a viable box office draw. Hollywood's new It Man, and we know why, man appeared in 3 movies this summer, with one modest success, allegedly. One modest success, Materialist, and 2 flops, Eddington and Fantastic Four, boys and girls. And honestly, Materialist, Eddington, have any of you seen those? Have you even heard of those prior to this video? Yeah, I didn't think so, boys and girls. The realization is fueling industry panic. Without massive summer hits, studios can't justify ballooning budgets, and streaming revenue has not filled the gap. Color of shock there. It's almost like there was a lot of people out there that said it wasn't going to work, huh? Analysts projected this year would cross the $4 billion summer box office mark. Instead, Hollywood is limping into the fall season with nothing but excuses. And that's all they have. And the problem is they don't want to admit the real problem, right? They really don't want to admit the problem anymore. They have bought off on the spirit of the age agenda, and despite, even if their marketing might have changed, it doesn't matter. They cannot get over themselves, and they ran off any good storytellers that they might have had left. That's the problem with Marvel. Even if Marvel doesn't want to chase the activist crowd anymore with their storytelling, right? Even if Warner Brothers or Disney doesn't want to, even if Warner Brothers and DC want to not chase that anymore either, which is very apparent by the Superman movie, it doesn't matter. You've had such a brain drain that anybody with actual reliable talent that could resurrect or revive this stuff, you either already fired, Me Too'd, or literally they don't want to work with you anymore. They will refuse to work with you anymore. And what do you why would you expect anything else? You've treated them all like garbage. We've gone over Rob Liefeld, the creator of Deadpool's stories before. We've heard about it from the X-Men showrunner as well. Like, it's literally the same kind of thing. You treat these people, you treat the actual creative powerhouses like crap. Also, you can blow smoke up some talentless hacks, but like Kevin Feige and Kathleen Kennedy. And then what do you expect? This. You expect big things to continue working because you're throwing more money at it. And guess what? You're not willing to diagnose the actual cancer that is the problem. Your ego and your pride, right? And until those things are willing to be set aside, this will never change. And honestly, I'm good either way. We've got plenty of independent stuff out there making great stories and great new content and great new heroes. We don't need you, Hollywood. You need us. Summer 2025 should serve as the box office wake-up call. The audience has moved on from the days when a superhero logo or a dinosaur was enough to guarantee $1 billion. Hollywood's insistence on recycling properties and pumping budgets ever higher has left it vulnerable. While smaller, smarter films and nostalgic crowd pleasers have quietly proven that there's still a market for theatrical storytelling. Five Nights at Freddy's, anybody? Despite having a day-and-date release on streaming as well, that movie still crushed it at the box office. And I can't wait for the second one because it's probably going to crush it even farther. And guess what? Small budget, stuck to the source material, and made a very rabid, although not the biggest, fan base out there extremely happy and made it very profitable. And you know what we're getting? A sequel. You know what we're not getting a sequel to? Thunderbolts or Fantastic Four. Mark my words. Mark my words. The question now is whether the major studios will change course or whether they'll continue doubling down on a blockbuster strategy that has clearly lost its shine. One thing is certain. If Lilo and Stitch is the outlier success story of the summer, then Hollywood's definition of event cinema has been rewritten, and the panic is only just beginning. And that's what it is. I've been saying this for a long time, and I used to get, back in the early days, back on the old channel, we used to get all kinds of people out in the comments, they'll never change their ways, yada, yada, yada. The parks will keep them afloat forever. Oh, all of these, BlackRock and State Street folks, they'll fund them forever and yada, yada, yada. How'd that work out? Because guess what happens? Despite your black-pilledness, despite Hollywood's own delusions of grandeur, despite all of that, a lot of people have found out, Hollywood's found out, for one, we don't need them. They have to earn our money. They're not deserving of it. They don't just automatically get it. And guess what? Yeah, God is still on his throne in heaven, and 2 plus 2 still equals 4. At some point, you do eventually run out of other people's money. And that's exactly what's happened. Because if you really want to keep your corporation afloat, if you really want to keep existing in your cushy C-suite offices, at some point you have to make a profit. And what Hollywood and what the spirit of the age has been doing over the last decade to 2 does not make a profit. Why? Because despite all of the elites out there, despite all the Kevin Feige's and the Dave Filoni's and the Kathleen Kennedy's and the James Gunns and the whoever else, name your favorite, most hated executive that you love to trash all the time out there, right? What they don't ever realize, what none of these people ever realize, is they think they can rewrite the world in their own image, right? It's the ego, it's the narcissism, it's the everybody gets a trophy generation. And guess what? It turns out that's not profitable. Because as all elites have always done throughout all of history, whether it be the monarchies, whether it be the Pharisees, it does not matter. The elites have always underestimated the common person, the common man, the normie, the common nerd. Because at the end of the day, we are the ones. We are the underrepresented. We are the underspoken for. We are the unwashed masses yearning for good storytelling. And without us, you are nothing. Without us, your franchises are nothing. Spider-Man would not be the undeniably #1 most recognizable superhero on the planet if it was not for generational storytelling that was passed down from fan to fan. Yes, we have the likes of Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, and all of the rest of those legends from the golden and silver age of comics to thank for those stories. 100%. And I hope they're all having a grand old argument in heaven over which one's the best. But at the end of the day, boys and girls, if their stories would have not resonated with us, if they would have not had generational storytelling with moral values that literally surpass time, then they would not be the franchises they are today. And that's something these egotists inside of Hollywood will never understand. But at some point, something has to break. And clearly, Hollywood is going to have to change its ways, or they are going to end up getting replaced by all of these other smaller studios that are out there doing good things and making a profit. Because the universe abhors a vacuum, boys and girls. And the masses, those unwashed masses, those plebes, those serfs, are crying out for good entertainment. And we will find it. And Hollywood's legacy institutions, you have your choice laid out before you. You can decide to respect the source material, put aside your diversity, inclusion, and equity nonsense, and actually get back to good storytelling. Or you can be replaced. The decision is up to you, because at the end of the day, the fans will decide. And the fans have decided you have had one of the worst box office summers we have ever seen in the history that Hollywood has been tracking it, despite all of your 10 pults and despite all of your history. And now you're panicking. After all, you dance with the devil. And this summer box office proves you've gotten burned. Because at the end of the day, fans decide, not Hollywood executives. A big shout out to all of our subscribers and members out there. Thanks for watching, and make sure you guys like and subscribe if you have not already.